3, 2, you.
How many of you enjoy Christmas? Well, good. Here is a story about a guy who hated Christmas. Our story takes place in a little town called Whoville. Now, every Whoville liked Christmas a lot, but the Grinch, who lived just north of Whoville, did not. The Grinch hated Christmas, the whole Christmas season. Now, don't ask why. No one quite knows the reason. It could be his head wasn't screwed on just right. It could be, perhaps, that his shoes were too tight. But I think that the most likely reason of all may have been that his heart was 2 sizes too small. But whatever the reason, his heart or his shoes, the Grinch stood there on Christmas Eve. You're at Google Docs, it won't work. I'm not on Google Docs.
You can move around that, but it should be the top right one.
Stood there on Christmas Eve, hating the Who's. Staring down from his cave with a sour, grinchy frown at the warm lighted windows below in their town. "They're hanging their stockings," he snarled with a sneer. "Tomorrow is Christmas, it's practically here." The Grinch growled with his Grinch fingers nervously drumming. "I must find a way to stop Christmas from coming," for tomorrow he knew all the Who girls and boys would wake bright and early and rush for their toys. And then, oh, the noise! Oh, the noise! That's one thing he hated. The noise. Then all the Who's would sit down to a feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast, and they'd feast. They'd feast on Who pudding and rare Who roast beast, which was something the Grinch could not stand in the least. Then the Who's would do something the Grinch liked least of all. Every Who down in Whoville, the tall and the small, would stand close together. With Christmas bells ringing, they'd stand hand in hand, and the Who's would start singing. And they'd sing, and they'd sing, and they'd sing. And the more the Grinch thought of this Who Christmas sing, the more the Grinch thought, "I must stop this whole thing. Why, for 53 years I've put up with this now. I must stop Christmas from coming." But how? Then the Grinch got an idea. An awful idea. The Grinch got a wonderful, awful idea. "I know just what I'll do," the Grinch laughed in his throat. "Ha!" And made a quick Santa Claus hat and a coat. "With this coat and this hat, I'll look just like Saint Nick," he said. "All I need is a reindeer." The Grinch looked around. But since reindeer are scarce, there were none to be found. Did that stop the old Grinch? No. The Grinch simply said, "If I can't find a reindeer, I'll make one instead." So he called his dog Max and took some red thread and tied a big horn on the top of his head. Then he piled some bags and some old empty sacks on a ramshackle sleigh and hitched up old Max. Then the Grinch said, "Giddy up!" and the sleigh started down towards the homes where the Who's lay a snooze in their town. All the windows were dark, quiet snow filled the air. All the Who's were dreaming sweet dreams without care when he came to the first little house on the square. "This is stop number 1, the old Grinchy Claus hissed, and climbed to the roof, empty bags in his fist. He climbed down the chimney, a rather tight pinch, but if Santa could do it, then so could the Grinch. He got stuck only once for a moment or two. Then he stuck his head out of the fireplace flue, where the little Who stockings all hung in a row. "These stockings," he grinned, "are the first things to go." Then he slithered and slunk with a smile most unpleasant around the whole room, and he took every present. And he stuffed all the presents in bags and stuffed them all one by one up the chimney. Then he slunk to the icebox as quick as a flash. Why, that Grinch, he even took the last can of Who Hash. Then goes, now I can stump the tree up. He took the tree and started to shove when he heard a small sound like the coo of a dove. He turned around quick and saw a small who, little Cindy Lou who was no more than 2. The Grinch had been caught by this tiny who daughter who had gotten out of bed for a cup of cold water. She stared at the Grinch and said, "Santa Claus, why? Why are you taking our Christmas tree? Why?" But that Grinch was so smart and so slick that he thought up a lie, and he thought it up quick. "Why, my sweet little tot," the fake Santa Claus lied. "There's a light on this tree that won't light on one side. So I'm taking it home to my workshop, my dear. I'll fix it up there and bring it back here." And his fib fooled the child, so he got her a drink, patted her head, and sent her to bed. And when little Cindy Lou Who went to bed with her cup, he went to the chimney and stuck the tree up. And the last thing he took was the log for their fire. And then went up the chimney himself, the old liar. He left nothing on the walls but some hooks and some wire. And the one speck of food that he left in the house was a crumb that was even too small for a mouse. And then he went to the homes of the other whose houses and left crumbs much too small for the other whose mouses. 3,000 feet up the side of Mount Crumpet, the Grinch went to the tip-top to dump it. They're finding out now that no Christmas is coming. They're just waking up. I know just what they'll do. Their mouths will hang open a minute or two, and all the Who's down in Whoville will all cry, "Boo!" "That is a sound," said the Grinch, "that I simply must hear." So he paused and put his hand to his ear. And he did hear a sound rising over the snow. It started in low, and it started to grow. But the sound wasn't sad. Why, the sound sounded merry. And it was merry, very. All the Who's, the tall and the small, was singing without any presents at all. He hadn't stopped Christmas from coming. It came. Somehow or other, it came just the same. The Grinch stood puzzling and puzzling till his puzzler was sore. Then the Grinch thought of something he hadn't before. Maybe Christmas, he thought, doesn't come from a store. Maybe Christmas, perhaps, means a little bit more. And what happened then? Well, in Whoville they say that the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day. And the moment that his Grinch heart didn't feel quite so tight, he whizzed with his load through the bright morning light. And he took back the toys and the food for the feast. And he himself, the Grinch, carved the roast beast. So what does Christmas really mean? Well, Christmas doesn't come from a store. It's about family, friends, love, and so much more. The end.
Nice.